Hey, everybody. I know that we got 15 minutes and then a break, and we all want a break. So I'm going to talk fast, but hopefully you still get something from it. My name is Bambi Hamby. I have no disclosures because, unlike everyone else, I don't have a bunch of letters after my name. So we are going to talk about words. When you talk with your clients, you're using what? Words. Funny. You're talking, you're engaging. You're going to have to communicate with them. Why does it matter that we consider the words that we use? Well, we want to reduce stigma. You will all work with clients. My hope is that you're doing this because you want to make their lives better. You want to make sure that they're living the healthiest, happiest versions of their lives. And if we are in a situation in which we are letting our own unconscious biases, our own conscious biases, our own philosophies, moral beliefs, what have you, get in the way of us communicating with our clients, we can create stigma. And when we create stigma, we reduce the care that they give. People shut down, people don't want to talk to us, people will not engage, and you're not able to do your jobs to the best of your ability. So how can we make sure that we're reducing stigma? We can do that by being aware of our own attitudes and behaviors. We all have our own moral beliefs, we all have our own moral compass, and that's wonderful. You should use that in your life. And when you're at work, your clients are going to have different moral compasses. It's not your place to let what you believe get in the way and hinder your ability to give them the best care for their life. Choosing your words carefully. The words that you use with your clients can differ in how the care that they get, the care that you give to them and the information that they give to you. When you ask someone, tell me about your sexual partners versus how many sexual partners do you have? One is, I will talk to you about my 3 boyfriends or my 5 girlfriends or, all the people who I hook up with on Grindr. The other one's going to make me go, you know what? I can already tell that you're going to judge me for my behaviors. So I'm just going to say, no, thanks, I'm good. Educating others. Information, when you get it and you have your aha moment, share it with your colleagues, share it with the people around you. Language is constantly changing and developing, and there are things that even in different communities, we may know things to be one way, and then we learn and we share that knowledge. And when you share that knowledge, you're sharing the wealth. Focus on the positive. When you have clients come in, again, you have your moral compass, use it in your life. And they may say something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable. Focus on the positive of that situation. Maybe there's someone who has multiple relationships. You're someone who believes monogamy is the way and the only way. It's not your place to be like, well, you really should be in a monogamous relationship. It's your job to be like, okay, you have multiple partners. Are you using protection with those partners? That's so wonderful. I'm so glad that you're using protections with your partners, or asking them about what type of protections are you using to take care of themselves and their partners, and supporting people. My hope is that as clinicians, as people who work with clients in this way, you're doing it because you want to support them, that you want to give them the best ability to live their lives. So if we keep these things in mind, we can help reduce the stigma. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the things that make up the clients that come to you. We are all different, even though we all are kind of made of the same amount of carbon and whatnot. We are all different, and we have different elements of ourselves that create who we are and how we see ourselves. This is the gender unicorn. It comes from the Trans Student Educational Resource. It was created to be shared and used. You may have heard of the gingerbread person. I do not recommend that model. That model was created by a cis man and is copyrighted based off of this model so that he can make money off of it. So if you get a chance, use this. And it breaks it down into gender identity, gender expression, sex assigned at birth, physical attraction, and emotional attraction. We're going to talk about each one. Like I said, I'm going fast because I know we all want that break. So, sex assigned at birth. You may have heard the acronyms AMAB, AFAB. All that stands for is assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth. We know we have gender reveal parties. Are we really revealing their gender, or are we revealing their genitals? We're kind of revealing their genitals. We're talking about what's going on in their diaper on a baby. That's kind of what the sex is. That is who they are based on the genitals that they were born with. We often hear people talk that there are only two sexes, and yet intersex people do exist. There are many different ways that intersex can be, trying to think of the right word, can exhibit itself. And so being mindful of that, your clients may be any one of these three. And again, the sex they were assigned at birth may not correlate with the gender that they identify with. That's when we get into terms like trans and cis. So a person's gender identity is how they see themselves. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you say, I am a beautiful woman, or I am a gorgeous man, or I am an amazing non-binary human being. That's how you see yourself, is the image that you have in your mind when you think of yourself. For those who are born and assigned female at birth and they look in the mirror, they say, I see a beautiful woman. That means your gender and your sex align and you identify as a cis person. So you would be a cis woman. Someone who may have been assigned male at birth, who also looks in the mirror and says, I see a beautiful woman, that person would identify as trans. Now, the reason why you may have heard many of us using terms like cis woman when we're talking instead of just using woman is because we're trying to normalize the fact that when we just assume that woman is a cis woman, we are erasing trans women from the conversation. So when you're aware of that and you can use that language to, again, be inclusive, it's not about separating, it's about including everyone. If you notice, there are the umbrellas, because it's easy, that you have your cis men, your cis women, you have your trans men, your trans women, but there's also another umbrella, the non-binary umbrella. That umbrella is kind of under the trans umbrella. That's because it's going to differ person to person. Some non-binary individuals identify with the trans experience and identify themselves as trans individuals. Other non-binary individuals will not identify as trans. They don't feel that that's part of their lived experience. So this again goes into not making assumptions based on what you know, but seeing the individual for who they are, finding out what their journey is. Something that I also want to point out is that trans people do not owe you transitioning. They do not owe you hormones, they do not owe you surgeries. And what I mean by that is a person who sees themselves, they do not need to change their body to see who they are. Their identity is who they are in their mind, and that is what's important. Often when someone hears that someone is transgender, even when they identify as non-binary, there's an assumption that, oh, that must mean you want to change something about your physical body. That may not be the case. For many trans individuals, it is, and you just don't want to assume that it is. Under the non-binary umbrella, you'll notice there's a couple other terms. That is because it is also just kind of used as a blanket term for people who have gender identities that differ outside of trans and cis. So you will have people who are gender non-conforming, gender queer, agender, which means they don't identify with any gender. And so to that, for this, they put it under the non-binary umbrella. Now I'm going to ask a question. We have a poll for online. I'll ask people here to raise their hands and definitely feel comfortable. If you don't know what pronouns are or you don't know what your pronouns are, do not feel afraid about that. We've had trainings where someone has come up to me and was like, I don't know what my pronouns are. And it's like, that's okay. That's what we're here to figure out. So who here uses he, him pronouns? She, her pronouns? They, them pronouns? Sie, them pronouns? Other pronouns? Or maybe you don't know what your pronouns are. So we have some people who use other pronouns. We'll talk about what those other pronouns may or may not be. So pronouns are just language. They're just the words that we use to describe who we are. I see that we have a lot of she, hers. We have an I don't know, that's wonderful. Online, he, hims, they, thems. I myself use they, them pronouns because I identify as non-binary. I'm a non-binary assigned female at birth individual who uses they, them pronouns. So pronouns, this way, right? Oh, how do I go back? There we go. So pronouns are just ways of showing possession without using a proper pronoun. Your name is a pronoun. When people are like, I don't have a pronoun, it's like, do you have a name? Well, guess what? You have a pronoun. Your pronoun is Mary. Your pronoun is Jack. That in and of itself is a pronoun. These are just pronouns that you use when you're not using their names. So the most common that we know in the English language is she and her for male and female. There are cultures in which they only have one third, this is called a third pronoun, when you're talking about possessive for someone. There are cultures that only have a gender neutral option. There's only one pronoun if you're talking about something without the person being there. Gender neutral pronouns that are often used in the English language include they, them, theirs. A lot of people try to be like, oh, this new language, we're changing how language works. They, them pronouns have been around since the 14th century. It's not something new. Shakespeare was down with the they, thems, so we can be down with them as well. There are other pronouns which are called neopronouns, which are where you get your z, zims, theirs, and those can be a little bit more work to get there. You will also have individuals who may have pronouns that are personal to themselves. I have a friend whose name is Taylor. Taylor's pronoun is Judy. Judy chose this pronoun because Judy knows that if Judy's dealing with someone who is a bigot, it's going to be a lot harder for them to be bigoted towards Judy if they're having to say Judy all the time, because people will sometimes use them to try and mock the person. So if they're having to say, well, Judy is going to the store, Taylor is like, yes, I am. And so some people will use their pronouns that way. Others use it as a way of individualizing themselves. It is important to ask people what their pronouns are and not assume. We cannot make assumptions based on how someone looks to how they identify or want to be seen. As I mentioned, I am a non-binary individual. I use they, them pronouns. I am also someone who presents very much on the more feminine side. Most people don't see me walking down the street and go, I think that's one of those non-binaries. Most people are like, that looks like a woman. And again, that's their observation of me. They don't know how I see myself. And so when people use she, her pronouns, I know that they're not seeing who I am. But if you take the time to ask someone and you use the pronouns that they tell you that they want, what you're doing is validating their existence. You're saying, I see who you are. And especially as clinicians, as people who are trying to give them the best care possible, them knowing that you see them for who they are is going to make a huge difference in the kind of care that you get. Now, it can be hard. It can be a little bit uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. Like, how do I get someone's pronouns out of them? One thing that you can do is introduce with your own pronouns. So, hi, my name is Bambi. I use they, them pronouns. Many people will end up mirroring that behavior back and share their pronouns. If they don't, just asking, what pronouns would you like me to use when referring to you? I caution staying away from the word, what pronouns do you prefer? Because you prefer ice cream flavors. An ice cream flavor is something that you like. I prefer chocolate, but if you have vanilla, I'm going to eat your vanilla ice cream. If I tell you that my pronouns are they, them, and you continue to address me as she, her, what I know is that you don't see me for who I am. It's not a preference. It's part of how they see themselves. And when you're able to mirror that back to them, you're going to build that trust. And it's really important with people to build trust, because I can tell you this often happens in sexually marginalized communities, that you may see these other pronouns than the ones you would assume. These are the communities that talk. In Baltimore, there are groups online, and I can tell you at least once a week, there is at least one person going, hey, I need a doctor. I need a doctor for this. I need a doctor for that. I need to go to a clinic. Where do you recommend? Who do you recommend? And you know exactly who they recommend, and there is a list, and those people are always busy. They also will say, I went here and I was disrespected. Like I said, I'm going to keep us as close to the break as possible, but I do want to share this story. I have a friend who is a trans man. He uses he, him pronouns. He went to a clinic to be put on PrEP. He knew that based on his lifestyle, he needed to be put on PrEP. He went in, The nurse practitioner came in, spoke with him, used his pronouns, practice model that great behavior. They then went into the hallway to talk to the doctor before the doctor came in to do the exam and used she, her pronouns. This caused my friend to spiral and shut down. He left the clinic without being put on PrEP. It took him about 6 more months before he built up the courage again to try and be put on PrEP again. So when you don't validate who a person is, you are putting them at risk. So that is why pronouns are important. Why am I not working for me? It likes everyone else, it doesn't like me. There we go. Gender expression. Don't judge a book by its cover. What someone is wearing doesn't tell you who they are. Again, that's where asking, what pronouns would you like me to use? Tell me about how you see yourself. How do you identify? Because what someone's wearing isn't who they are. It's what they're comfortable in. I myself dress and like things that are on the more feminine side. I wear my hair in a more typical feminine cut. I have a bajillion dresses, much to the chagrin of my wife, because that's what I like to wear. And yet, when I look in the mirror, when I see myself and talk to myself, I don't see a woman. I see a non-binary individual. When people find out that my wife and I are a cis woman and a non-binary individual, they always assume she's non-binary because she dresses masculine. She feels more comfortable in clothes that are labeled male. Clothes don't have gender. And we have to remember that when people are wearing them. I had a friend in college who was a cis man, heterosexual cis man, but he wore skirts. I went to college in Florida. It's hot as balls in Florida. And that is why he wore skirts, because it's hot as balls in Florida. And it was much more comfortable for his balls to be in a skirt. And yet people questioned his identity. They questioned his gender. They questioned his sexuality because he chose to wear this article of clothing. So again, you don't want to make an assumption based on what someone's wearing as to who they are or how they see themselves. Get to know them. And again, if you are known as the practitioner who is going to ask and take that time to get to know their clients, you will be busy all the time. So take that into consideration, how busy you want to be, I guess. But hopefully you want to be a busy practitioner helping people live better lives. So again, no one owes you how they dress based on how they see themselves. And also people who are trans and people who are non-binary don't owe you androgyny. Androgyny often also falls more on the masculine side. If you search androgynous clothes online, if you Google it, you're going to see a lot of clothes that you're like, huh, I can see that in the men's section at Target. So just being mindful that no one owes you that. They're wearing what makes them feel good in their body, just as I hope you are wearing what makes you feel good in your body. Unless you have to wear scrubs for work and maybe those aren't your favorite, but hopefully you find some that you like. So also with this, again, being aware of your biases on where people fall and what the relationships are within themselves and with others. We know what type of relationships, sexual, emotional, romantic, that feel good to us. That doesn't mean it's the same for everyone else. This is one of the best, still not great, but one of the better representations of how modern relationships may or may not look and how they can and cannot overlap. Again, it's not about what you like or what you think is right or wrong. It's about what is right or wrong for your clients. There's a term that's often used in some of the circles I run in that's called "don't yuck on my yum." What that means is if you're doing something that I am not down with, I do not want to engage with that, you know what? That makes me go, I do not like that, yuck. I'm not going to tell you because it's not my job. If that's your favorite thing, then you know what? Have at it, enjoy it. And in this instance, let's just make sure you're doing it to the safest ability that you can for yourself and your partners. There are a lot of different ones on here, so take a quick look. If there's any you want me to explain a little bit more, we will definitely do that because there's always something. So I tried to keep that as close to the time limit so we can get our break in. If there's any questions, please let me know and I can go back go further in detail on any of this.